It's funny because you'll bring up these deep like psychoanalysis, so to speak. So like, I guess I didn't think about it till right now. But hearing
that's
now,
the point of this podcast.
Yeah. So hearing that now, getting my free therapy, I'm going to cancel my BetterHelp subscription.
Well, don't, because we hope that they're a sponsor. So you can just have us in addition.
BetterHelp.
Hello and welcome to the Personality Color Matrix podcast. This is our introductory first episode, but we're launching this thing in order to help actually show the colors in action. It's one thing for me to tell you how much these insight tools allow you to better understand yourself and others that you communicate with and want to connect with in life, but it's a total other thing to see it live in action and in conversation. So to that end, I wanted to invite on someone who's really special to me. This is initially someone that I found out there in the world of music and comedy in Arizona, and I actually invited him and booked him on a show. And then from there, we've been doing some podcasting and conversating back and forth, and it's really great banter. And I think that ultimately he can be of great assistance to this podcast running it in the back end, right? But before I'm just asking him to help pull up stuff and cut between camera angles or anything like that, I really wanted to also feature and celebrate John White.
What's up, man?
Pleasure to have you, brother.
It is awesome to be here. I love the setup. It's cold as fuck, but it's a much better setup than us crowded around my couch.
I think it's been exciting for me to get to know you because we both are very clever in how we look at the world, and in a sense, we're very intelligent people. And then in a way, sometimes feel like we're a little misfit in the world because everybody else seems to be idiots. And I don't want to speak too much of your experience, but that is the common experience that we get like when we're looking at the world through like the strong blue lenses.
Oh, nice.
And that's something that you and I really share is like, problem solving, ingenuity, figuring out how to, understand how things work, get to the bottom of them. But at the same time, we approach it in really different ways because of our secondary colorings.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's weird looking at you in blue glasses. I don't know if the angle sees.
Because
that you got a table, rainbow table.
Yeah, I have I have to have a little arsenal.
I thought it was a pride thing.
A lot of people, here's one thing, ultimately celebrate your individuality, right? I think that the test, what's great is the concepts of like those movements, they really do fall more into a green space. But what we're talking about is almost outside of any kind of a group identity. How do you discover more about yourself individually and then actually not need to rely so much on groups in order to inform who you are? Because sometimes those are almost like masks that we wear. I only say this to say that if somebody asked me, who's Corbin? And then I was to answer like, well, Corbin's like a white libertarian male. It's like putting me in way too many boxes of group identity I'd prefer not to be in. I'd rather be like Corbin's a Corbin.
Yeah.
Which is hard for you because you're already with White. You're already boxed in.
I'm boxed in, man.
Like part of your comedy is in how you're the average.
Yeah, no, like if you started a game of Skyrim right now, I'm what you start with when you start character building. And everyone just goes, I know, he's got to be taller, stronger.
Yeah.
As we saw at the camera, he needs to go a couple shades darker.
Yeah.
Just basic.
Got to bump up the height.
The Matrix did not try when they made me.
It's you are perfectly you give us the median of the range.
Okay.
Yeah. So many times
that's a good way. I like that. That feels better.
One extreme or the other that creates the range. No, one of the things about this technology is really the middle is the most important part. That's the trunk of the tree as opposed to the branches or the roots that actually holds everything together.
Definitely.
I look at you as the glue of America.
I'm the glue of America, John White. Coming to a city near you.
Now, tell me a little bit about what you do, because I already introed it a little bit, but tell me a little bit of your backstory, how you got into comedy, and then also what you're manifesting in life now.
I love the big words you use, like what I'm manifesting in life. I never think of it like that.
Oh, hey, I'm here to reframe, brother.
Reframe. I like it. Honestly, it's always cool when you look back in hindsight, because you can look back and see how the path you're on was apparent the whole time that you would be on. I didn't even think about comedy until I was probably like 27, 28 years old. Never considered it. I was raised watching a lot of Robin Williams and movies with my grandma. Yeah, whether they were appropriate for my age or not, I was always allowed to watch those. And we'd watch those together, and then I'd watch Jay Leno at night. Love Jay Leno. That was always something like, but I always wished that could be me. But, as a kid, I just saw anything in comedy or entertainment like being an actor. Like that's just not a normal thing. No one can do that. That's not a normal job people can have. So I never even thought to aspire to anything like that. And then about junior high, I got really into music and playing guitar. I wanted to learn to play guitar to get girls.
Oh my God.
I did everything but.
You're the guitar guy at the party that Mike Birbiglia would talk about.
Wanted to be.
Wanted to be.
Yeah, but I guess I'm way too autistic to just learn Wonderwall and call it a day. And I could have got a lot of pussy that way. But I think I just spent way too much time learning to play music.
Yeah.
And I was sucked into the guitar, really into writing music. Played in a few bands growing up, but then started a little band after high school briefly, and just never really did much with it, but always kind of had it on the back burner. I went on a Mormon mission too, so that kind of put a halt in it. I was trying to find some spirituality, did that, and then
Where'd you go in your mission?
Portland, Oregon.
Wow, they really need Jesus up there.
I'm telling you, man, if I couldn't get any, so it was a kind of boring experience in that regard. It was still really cool. I learned a lot, but it didn't really hit the spiritual vibe that I was searching for. So I had to pursue that in other paths, and decided religion wasn't the way I was going to do that. So
what was the way that you decided to do that?
Drugs and alcohol.
Oh,
hallucinogens.
Of course.
Mushroom trips. Let's do that. It's
awaken
funny.
the mind.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's funny. I only decided to go on my mission because of an acid trip.
Wow.
Yeah.
God was talking to you.
He was, and it was like, you need to find spirituality. I was raised Mormon, so it was a really easy thing to go in. And also, if you don't know much about Mormon kids, when you're growing up, it is very pushed upon you that a mission is something to do, and that kind of alluded that you would be frowned upon if you didn't go. So when already trying to find spirituality and having that looming as well, it made it a really easy decision to be, okay, we'll go do this. I've been raised this is a natural step. So
this is your pilgrimage.
Yeah.
In many religious faiths, one must do the pilgrimage.
Yeah.
Yours was to Portland.
Right. Smoked a lot of salvia up there.
The dream of the 90s is still alive in Portland.
And it was very, I guess what we would call now woke.
Yeah, sure.
That word didn't exist at the time. I think they were still...
Portland was woke before there was even woke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was we
call that PW, pre-woke.
Pre-woke. Yeah, they were wild up there. Cool people, a lot of interesting people, but I was very glad to have that behind me when I came back.
I think just following that, I think because I initially was introduced to Portland before the culture war ever began, I naturally have the affinity for what is the inherent good quality of woke, or just like that more progressive look at the world, as opposed to any of the other ways that it gets colored. Because, whenever it's at its honest intention, it's sort of accepting and embracing the weirdness, which I honestly appreciate about cities like Austin or Portland. Austin initially was Texas is such a
I've never been
densely red state. Oh, well, then Austin is sort of like this little liberal wildflower in the middle of a lot of, cement structure. So
I need to go. I feel like as a comedian, I'm definitely.
Oh my gosh!
I'm definitely like.
Well,
I haven't visited the motherland.
They just want
the mothership, rather.
The Mecca. Oh, the mothership. Yeah, they want you to move there. That's definitely the thing. But you're then that would deprive Phoenix of our best.
Oh, they would miss me so much.
We would. Well, luckily I already got you on the podcast. So.
Absolutely.
I love the desire to like move and pursue that passion and that spirituality, but then also going, well, within the structure of that, this isn't really making sense to my mind. Mm-hmm. And there's sort of a little bit more of a skepticism that you began to approach towards the religious foundational belief system that you were inherited.
Yeah. And I think after that, I really just gave up on truth seeking and just discovered kind of to myself that, like, truth isn't there to be sought in the way that I'm seeking it. I think it's there to just be found and experienced while living. You know what I mean? You don't go looking for it, but it's only like, you go looking for a bird in the woods, you never see it. But if you're not looking for it, you see it every day. Be mindful of it, truth, when it comes around to you, but don't necessarily make it a crusade to go have to hunt down, because it's truth is elusive. And I think the harder you try to search for it, you run into the problem that you're gonna end up with a bias. You're gonna end up with this bias and wanting to prove it, and already creating an idea about something that you have nothing to validate it with. So I kind of got through that, and then I got really angry and resentful for a while, and then kind of just threw that all out in my late 20s and said, time for peace. And then, I don't know, I guess decided I wanted to be funny.
Yeah. Well, and it's reflected in your colors. I think that this is, now that we have that context, I have your colors pulled up here. And when we're looking at you in a personal context, like I said before, we both have blue in our color blend as a secondary color. So we both strongly relate to that. But your primary color is purple. So when we have this combination of purple, blue, and yellow, we get what's called the careful triad. And a lot of what you've even been talking about up to this point is sort of like, whether it was approaching the world or religion or your environment with sort of a level of skepticism, but then also going, looking for truth. That's the blue tendency, like a pig going through the dirt looking for the truffles, right? That's how we find ourselves looking for that big T truth in life. You have this more dominant purple tendency that's like, and even your shirt right now is purple. I love it.
I did it for you.
Thank you.
I knew.
Thank you. It's great that self-awareness is there, because it's your dominant color.
Do I get the purple glasses? Like, where's my?
If you want, man, I'll give you the purple glasses all day.
Like,
you can wear them as we're talking about your colors here now in the personal context, because they're your most dominant.
Oh yeah.
So the purple context in the way that they see the world, it's all about what's most efficient. And at a certain point, it's not efficient to keep searching for the truth, because it's ultimately like a distraction. There is this interesting thing that's going on in the connection between your purple and your blue. Purple being focused on systematicness, and blue being focused on ingenuity and problem solving. When those combine, we get a real methodical approach where we're like, there's a serious attention to detail and strategical approach to life, which is why, you're green in this context, which speaks more to the spirituality side. It wasn't necessarily the religion itself that was calling you to go on the mission. It was more the structure of how it worked, that it was the inevitable next step based on the way that you're purple.
Hermeticism so much now.
Well, yeah, exactly here. And we're getting into, because it makes sense. You're one of these people that before you can proceed in a direction, this is why we say careful. Another way to even look at this would be cautious. You said earlier before, it's like you would start the band or you would start the venture, but then if it didn't make sense, if you didn't see it going anywhere, then why did it really make sense to continue, investing into that?
Right, which I've found to be proven wrong in a lot of things that I do, that I've jumped into and been like, wow, there was success there. It makes me kind of look back and regret a lot of careful times.
Well, what's interesting is, like, with the colors, let's say that we were using that purple, which is trying to figure out that plan. But instead of the blue, which is looking at all the potential things that could go wrong, we replace that with the orange, which is all of the potential things that could go right in the opportunity. Then those things combine into being like maximizing life achievement. Versus, that's like the thing where I go, oh gosh, I could have done that. But there's this sort of overthink that can happen with the blue and yellow that's strong in your color blend here at the top. The blue and yellow are very introspective. Now it's interesting because, like, yellow is introspective in the sense of other people. I want to be emotionally aware of my partner or people that I care about and be sensitive. And I'm kind of in my head a little bit, and I'm thinking about, oh, how did they interpret that? Am I coming off the right way? Are they receiving my service? versus the blue, they get very in their heads about external things, not necessarily relationships, but like the problems of the world. They're looking at the news, or this doesn't make sense, or there was this idiot in traffic. And then at a certain point, they're looking at all the problems in their surroundings, and then that troubles their mind, which is interesting because like with blue, we both have this in common. It's the color that's easiest to go into its extreme because all you need to do is get a cell phone or read the news in some capacity.
I could TikTok for 4 hours. Give me the...
And then you'll just, at a certain point, end up being like, I don't understand this world. I don't understand these people. And I wish to remove myself from all of them, right? And this speaks to like the nature of like blue wanting to remove itself for kind of isolating and like recharge. Like I need to go away sometimes in order to have the social battery that comes with like my orange. But if it's a blue purple thing, then it's like, I almost want to pull back and strategize about what's the right next move. Is that something you can relate to?
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely need I guess that comes to exactly what I said. If I can't see the working parts of it and see a way it's going to work, I need to regroup and figure that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I need to see a plan for the future. I need to see step by step what we want. Like people, you can wish in one hand and shit in the other, and which fills up quicker.
Like, which is really interesting. So think about this. This is the careful or the cautious triad at play. Plan, right? That's the purple. And then you want it to ultimately, like you're considerate of other people in your life, and you want the plan to work for them. Otherwise, if it was really just about you, which is your fourth color here is red, and the red is determined, to drive. But what's really interesting is that sometimes if we look at if you're triad, we look at the colors that aren't at play, right?
Oh, okay.
So when you're careful and you're cautious...
This is where it's going to get bad.
Well, it's all depending upon how you look at it. When you're careful and you're cautious, what you're not being is charismatic.
Yeah,
So
no,
you're
sure.
not out there, you're not connecting with the people, and you're not necessarily being outgoing. But what you are is you're protecting your space, you're being observant, and you're taking things in stride as it makes sense in time. And it's not necessarily that it's like all great to go out there and be charismatic, because you could go out there and be charismatic, go into the extreme and become a cult leader.
Right.
And there's a lot of cautious, skeptical people, careful people like you that are ready to call BS on, whatever is going on in that aspect. Hello, you centered relationship seekers. Just a quick ad break. In case you're wondering what shirt I'm wearing, it says Recovering Arguholic. If you're like me and have strong blue tendencies and need to be right all the time, you may find yourself in more conflict than's necessary. Now, we can help you with that, and it begins by understanding what are your colors? What are the colors of the people that you're interacting with? How can we reduce this conflict in your life? How can we improve your communication? So it begins by being a listener on this podcast. Thank you so much. Go ahead and, if you haven't already, like this video, subscribe to this channel. Please share it with your friends. Share it with your greatest enemy, because they can all use this information to remember that we're one. We're a big collective family that's craving that connection, and these personality insight tools can help provide it. And it's very fun, gamified, and user-friendly, simple to use. You pop bubbles in order to understand and find out more about how you view the world in different contexts. And there's a really cool connectivity feature that allows you to sync up with other people so that you can understand their colors, which will improve your understanding. You can give each other grace. You can hold each other accountable. You can communicate in terms that aren't just black and white. There's a big, wide, colorful spectrum out there, and I invite you to find your place on it. What sticks around is the blue and the purple.
Well, the blue, you said that's the tism, right? That's
blue is the tism, so it's always going to be there. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the tism. I love that our framing of that, but it's like a love for and a fascination for things, which people with,
trains.
Well, it's like trains. Trains go choo-choo. I have a big collection. It's, whenever you would watch Love on the Spectrum, I would watch Love on the Spectrum with my wife, and the people would be showing off their rooms, and she'd be like, oh, this is why you have all that Harry Potter memorabilia. And, I had like all my Marvel helmets that are organized. This one's from Captain America and the Winter Soldier. And she was like, oh, but it is really an attention and fascination in details and mythologies and world building. No, actually, what's interesting about your color blend in the ideal is that the colors are basically consistent with your personal, except the yellow is replaced by the orange. And so this goes out from being somebody who's careful to somebody who's prestigious in their presentation because they have a plan. They've worked on their craft in the back end. They've practiced it. And now they're presenting it to the audience. And it's almost like, you think about the kind of work that a magician has to put in order to perfectly perfect a trick. And it's really similar to the kind of work that you have to put in when you're doing comedy.
Oh, for sure. I think we've talked a little bit about this before. I struggle in any like crowd work, so to speak, just because it's more free form. And I don't usually approach art in that way. I like to write it out, get it perfect, and not show it until it's good.
Now that is definitely blue.
Okay. So yeah, I did. So I can definitely relate to that of just the feeling that if I'm going to work on this, it needs to. I guess I don't know where I'm going.
You're going to say be perfect.
Yeah. I'm just being redundant.
No, well, it's true. Well, but when we talk about like the thing that sometimes can hold blue personality tendencies back, myself included, is a drive for perfectionism.
Right.
And then that drive and desire for perfectionism results in procrastination.
For sure.
It's like, oh, if I can't get it exactly right, then it's like, oh, okay, I'll go off and do something else, which is, for me, my orange kicks in, which is my primary color these days, and then I'm like easily distracted by going and doing a bunch of different possible things.
I get that. I get it really bad when I play video games because I love speedrunning video games.
Okay.
And then I found like of this app that's live split, like that's what the speedrunners use, like it times your segments. So now seeing that, I will sit and just like first level of something I'm running, just repeat. There it is. Like, nope, time's not there yet. We're going back.
Oh my God, dude.
I've got like 800 hours of playing a game that I've beat the game several times, but I'm like, nope, I'm only playing like the first 3 minutes because I'm got to get past this.
There is no way that you are speed running if you don't have like strong purple and blue in your color blend. Because there's just like, it would only be that desire to try to perfect something, like get the best time, do it over and over, put in the practice.
No bad move, 100% for 3 hours straight,
and that's really where that comes in. Like anybody who's going to be somebody who has perfected something, like there was that the King of Kong or whatever, the people that would get really, really good at Donkey Kong or any of these games, you have to have strong purple in order to spend the time and dedicate yourself into actually creating that system within yourself where you get really good at these stuffs. See,
I like that you call it blue or purple because I've just been calling it retarded the whole time.
Your self-deprecation, which I love, comes from this sort of cynical blueness that blossoms out of your wounded yellow.
My wounded,
wounded yellow.
What's wounded yellow?
Okay, well, you got to think about yellow tendencies because it's really dominant here in your blend. In fact, it's only 2 points away from your blue. So yellow is all about finding acceptance and appreciation in life.
Oh, yeah.
And like being intimate with people, vulnerable, open. It is very strong, as I say, Hufflepuff energy. But then when we are not like accepted and people reject us, then it really can crush a yellow. They want to be seen for who they are, and then that be okay, right? And the world doesn't necessarily always work like that because we have we have a whole bunch of reds and purples and blues and strength colors that are out there that are sometimes beating down that poor little yellow spirit. And I happen to be one of those people. Yellow comes out in my extremes, but when it comes to like the day to day, sometimes
every time I hear yellow coming out, I just keep thinking Asian, like your Asian tendency.
Oh, great! I'm so glad that you introduced that. We usually try to frame yellow as just being like you can get into, in the extreme state, a place of victimhood where you're so overcome with emotions that you can't even figure out how to move forward. That's why the interesting thing is that yellow's complementary color is purple. Come up with a plan of action and take the next step as opposed to just wallowing in your emotion. Because if you go like you're in a yellow extreme and then you move into red, then it's going to be like, I'm a victim and now I'm going to go get everybody that, victimized me. You get a Lorena Bobbitt who cuts off her husband's member in the middle of the night. Versus yellow at its core is like Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. Oh, there's no place like home. But now if Dorothy's whole world gets torn apart by tornadoes, or people aren't kind on her journey on the yellow brick road, if Dorothy has that blue in her too, then she's going to start being like, all these people, they think they're so good, but none of them really care. Because if they cared, then they would think about how I am and how I'm doing, right?
Yeah, the cowardly, of course he's with me. He's a coward. He's not, he doesn't.
And this is the
Tin Man just wants a heart. That's all.
Oh, the Tin Man is so heartless, and the Scarecrow doesn't have any brains. And you kind of get into those cynical interpretations when you have those blue lenses. And this is sort of when we look at like that introspectiveness that comes with the blue and yellow. Like I said, they're always in their head and they're thinking about things. But when that goes into the extreme, that's the anxiety. That's the depression. It's in Big Five, they call it neuroticism, but it's basically contemplating and ruminating on the negative. One thing that's interesting with me and like blue is that I tend to catastrophize. Like I in my extreme, I can go full Chicken Little, where I think the sky is falling, and my green.
So my girl does.
My green tendencies will sometimes influence my gullibility and my naivety. So, for instance, there was this time when I was going through a real rough breakup, and I was like, man,
what was his name?
Rachel. And so when I was...
So he was Jewish?
Yes.
Sorry.
When I was going through this whole thing, there was earthquakes that were happening. I think there was a big tidal wave that had happened in Indonesia that we remember. And then they were saying, there's going to be this supermoon and it's going to complete the Ring of Fire. And this is going to be the big one in LA. The earthquake is coming. And so I was like, I got to get out of the city. I'm escaping this, right? I was so ready because my relationship was ending, for the literal world to be ending. And so I end up driving on the highway out of LA to Joshua Tree. And I keep looking in my rearview mirror, waiting for the earth to crumble and crack behind me like I'm John Cusack in the movie 2012.
Wouldn't Joshua Tree be the place? If you really got to watch it, just... Joshua Tree's nice.
Yeah,
you got if you're gonna watch the world crumble.
Yeah, and I said I don't want to be in LA when it all goes down. I've continually always said that. Unfortunately, I was never in LA when anything went down. But I think that it just speaks to the fact that sometimes my mind can get the better of me because I build things up almost like a molehill into obviously a big old mountain Everest, that then I live in the shadow of. And that almost intimidates me. What's interesting with
it's poetic.
Thank you very much. I'm an author. It's that careful and sometimes that caution and being too blue in our heads prevents us from actually going out there and experiencing life, because sometimes we're so focused on the little imperfections or the problems that we can't actually appreciate. It's like seeing the forest apart from the leaves. You said this earlier when you were talking about going for a walk and in nature.
The appreciating truth. You miss it if you're looking too hard.
Exactly, that's what I'm talking about. And so it's interesting though that the orange. You're basically right on track. Like there's a part of you that will always have that methodical nature where you'll want to strategically isolate yourself in order to design a plan or a product that you think is going to be really, really cool. And then you want, once it's perfect, to go out and share it with the world. What's interesting is that the thing that has to kick in, and it does kick in, I've seen it, but it just depends on how ritualistically you do it and how much energy you pour into it, is that being on stage and in front of people, or on the social media front, putting that stuff out there.
And it's weird because I don't struggle actually with like stage and stuff and the nervousness like of my performance. And I think some of that maybe is the upside to the preparation. Even if I go on stage, like last year, I didn't do a lot because we've just been doing a lot of family work at home financially. But I only went on stage like 4 times last year, but I was never nervous. But it's because I practice and work on it so much that I feel like once I get there, I'm like, well, if I was going to screw up, I wouldn't be here. If I thought, there wasn't a very high likelihood of success. I know that you can still bomb, but I've never really had the bad bombs. But I appreciate the people who can go out there and do it, because they're putting themselves out there and getting that, they're learning through a way that I won't.
Mm. Well, and honestly, when we did the show that I booked you on, and you did one of my favorite songs of yours, the I Gave You AIDS song.
Oh yeah, the crowd favorite.
It's
AIDS.
A crowd favorite, yeah. AIDS. Yeah.
Go stream it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, all your platforms.
I would suggest that you go and pirate it off of LimeWire.
Yeah, that one's a good one too, because we do have a affiliation with some viruses. So you get those viruses on your computer, you pay to get those off. Geek Squad gives me money.
It literally gives your computer AIDS.
Yeah, absolutely.
That song, I hope that they make a sequel to Rent, and that song can be celebrated and featured. But I think that even that song speaks to kind of your cynical way of looking at the world. And it kind of, even when we look at the coloring of that song, it's very witty in that it really embodies actually your ideal self colors, which is the purple. I'm leading you through sort of a premise, and there's a structure to this that's ultimately going to have a payoff, which is what you've worked on and developed the plan. Because that is a crowd favorite in that there's a moment where the song shifts, and then we get it's blue up to a certain point, and then it becomes very orange. And this speaks into the prestige. When we're looking at like your triad of your ideal self and why you feel so comfortable on stage, it's because you're embodying that ideal self. The ideal self isn't necessarily something that you haven't ever tapped into. You already have. The ideal self already lives within you. It's just to what degree are you actually, embodying it? And that's purely upon your choice and awareness. But what's interesting is sometimes the stress is what gets in the way. And your under stress is basically the exact same coloring as your personal. The only difference is that your yellow shoots to the primary color.
Do people usually shift a lot between those, or
yeah, I think
consistent?
We can see a lot of different fluidity in between context, but sometimes there is consistency, and people can score the same in like who they are at work in their professional context as who they are in their personal, or sometimes their rage maps onto who they are.
I feel like I'd have a hard time dealing with someone like that. Like if they were scoring like, hey, at work, I'm super aggressive and I'm super get it done and super rah, rah, rah. But at home, I'm just easygoing and that. And like, I don't like people who switch like that. That seems inconsistent.
Well, you could call it inconsistent, but it's like nature versus nurture. I think that there's sort of a combination of it, and it could seem inconsistent given your coloring, right? Because your purple, blue, and yellow all look for consistency. Those three colors primarily, that's what they are caught on. So whenever you're looking with like what is in its extreme, the careful and cautious triad, it is the the suspicious triad. So there, with all of that scrutiny, can come at a certain point like a little bit of, if the yellow is the main color that's at play, then it's like, I doubt that this person that I'm actually engaged with one-on-one is telling me the truth. I want to get to the bottom of it and understand. Versus if we were dealing with green, then it's this person is harboring some kind of a bias that is affecting their way that they're looking at ideology or like a group. It's like the difference between basically partisanship and, no, I shouldn't say partisanship. I should say strategic, which in its extreme can become partisanship, and caution and carefulness, which in its extreme can become suspicious. Is literally just the difference of yellow and green. But your yellow is like the sensitive side of you. So this is once again why I say you have this wounded yellow heart. A lot of us do in this world, in society. I mean, yellow is one of my lower colors, but like in the context of a relationship, I would really allow my yellow to be very vulnerable. Then I would get hurt, and I'd have to like go fully orange and develop like a complete musical alter ego in order to deal with my shattered ego and toxic masculinity. Like that was my orange and my blue
someone that
coming
happened
together. I may. I hope one day to get them on the podcast.
Yeah.
But with that yellow vulnerability, or at least it comes out in stress, what ends up happening is that under stress, you really tune in more so than what is the plan into like, how's everybody feeling right now while all of this is going on, which is interesting. And it, honestly, your partner God bless her, she's really benefiting, from that yellow being balanced. Now, what's interesting is sometimes when somebody's all yellow, then, or not all yellow, I should say, they're really, really strong in yellow, and then less dominant in purple, then it's like so much emotions and they can't get anything done. But when they're all purple or majority purple and a little yellow, it's so rooted in work that they don't make time for their relationships. What's interesting is that under stress, you're prioritizing the relationship, but then right behind it, you're prioritizing the plan and how to do it right.
Well, I think, I guess, it's funny because you'll bring up these deep, psychoanalysis, so to speak, and I said, that makes me think of this. I'm like, I guess I didn't think about it till right now. But hearing that,
that's
now,
the point of this podcast.
Yeah. So hearing that now, getting my free therapy, I'm going to cancel my BetterHelp subscription.
Well, don't, because we hope that they're a sponsor. So you can just have us in addition.
I noticed that a lot, that I tend to think that I don't care about people's feelings that much, but I guess I care to them a lot in the extent that if people aren't feeling good in what's going on, what help are they going to be to accomplishing the goals? If these people if you have a bunch of employees and they don't feel valued and your team doesn't feel valued and that their ideas are being implemented and that they're not an active part of what you're building, then what, they don't have an investment in it. They're going to feel left out. They're going to feel resentful. If everyone's not happy with the direction the ship's going, you're going to have a mutiny.
And so what's interesting is this yellow-purple dynamic when they're blending in your stress. That essentially the commonality that they share, those colors yellow, purple, is service. So purples want to be of service in the capacity of it is my duty to be of service to you. The yellow mind wants to be of service in the capacity that I care about you. And so I want to be of service to you. Now, what's interesting is the purple expects you to follow the rules. The yellow expects you to appreciate them in return. So one of the things that also is going on, not only are you looking to be of service to other people, but you're also under stress looking for people to appreciate that you're coming up with the plan.
It'd be nice.
It would be nice, right?
I just don't want to get shit. It's some sucks when you build things, you create things. There's no shortage of critics. You know what I mean? I think of it anytime I'm watching a TV show or a movie, there's the guy who figures out how to, the ship's sinking, and this is the guy who figures out how to save them while they're at sea and get them to land. And then they're mad at him for all the leadership things he did along the way. Well, I didn't see anyone. I saw everyone drowning. I was just trying to keep everyone's head above water.
You want to be of service because you observe that there's some type of dysfunction. Purples are all about creating efficiency out of dysfunction. Or with the yellow, I'm observing some type of emotional disharmony or dysfunction that I would like to speak some peacemaking into. What's really interesting is you take both of those colors to the extreme, and then you end up getting a form of burnout. Like the purple mind can work itself so hard and stretch itself so thin that then it's like I'm overworked and I've got nothing left. Versus the yellow mind can try to serve and put so much into other people that they end up feeling drained and like nobody ever puts anything back to me. What's interesting is that the blue part of the mind will then take stock of all of that and remember, oh, you didn't appreciate me that time, put that in the list. Oh, you didn't you didn't follow the plan that time, put that on the list. And so then the question is out of the stress where we go in the extreme. Oh, you're very consistent. The once again, we're dealing with yellow.
John White, the baseline.
I swear to God, your stats are so average, bro. No, I'm just joking with you. The carefulness is really, and the caution is what's going on. But when we go into a full enraged mode, suspicion. Your yellow is looking at potentially framing yourself as a victim in certain circumstances in life, where it's like people take advantage of me, or people don't see me for who I am, or people don't appreciate me or love me for who I am. And then as a result of that, the blue comes in and gets critical and almost mean in return for feeling wounded and not accepted in that level. So you have,
I always just assume it's me. There's like, I guess I go to the self-deprecation there too. If I look at it and I'm like, oh, I'm not being appreciated and not liked if I'm feeling that way, even when it's not true, and like even when it's so evident that it's not true, if I'm feeling that way, I kind of go to that feeling of like, okay, then it's because I suck. Because tons of other people love and appreciate everyone else, even though they have flaws. I don't feel entitled. I think deep down, I struggle to feel entitled to that same appreciation. Like if I do something wrong, then it's always wrong.
Your blue and purple are justifying and coming up with reasons that make sense out of your yellow feelings. Hello, all you centered relationship seekers. Just another quick ad break. I wasn't kidding about the BetterHelp ad. We really would like that sponsorship. But until then, I got to tell you guys about the Personality Color Matrix, the transformative tool to unlock joy, upgrade your awareness, and reconnect. It's a new book that's coming out this May 23rd to be precise, and it's written by yours truly and my mother. It offers a look at the enmity and entitlement epidemics that are tearing the fabric of our Western culture apart, and how we can speak unity, how we can speak love and the center back into that divisiveness. And it approaches the issues from a millennial perspective, a la yours truly, and also the perspective of a boomer, who's my mother, who is the creator and architect of this original personality insight technology. And now is the time to act, because actually when you pre-order this book, it comes with bonuses that include a full unlock of the online test series, which is normally valued at $99. Right now, we're giving it away free when you pre-order the book. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. Plus, there's an ebook that allows you to understand and work through the colors, understanding them in their center and their extreme at your own pace. Just to say, until BetterHelp becomes our sponsor here on this podcast, I'm going to tell you that you need to look out for this book. It's coming May 23rd, and it's hopefully going to change a lot of lives. When you were growing up, was there like a point where you felt like the world had let you down in a sense, and then as a result you kind of got a little bit sharper with how you would criticize the world?
Yeah, that was my mission. Yeah, coming back after that, I was definitely...
Let's go there. Tell me.
Like we kind of did it in my background a little bit. Just like I came back from my mission, and I was just like, the order of religion's not really suiting me. I tried to really just take approach, like on the face level, I thought I was just being like ignoring it. Like I didn't care. I both my roommates that I moved in with when I came back kept their Book of Mormons and scriptures for like a long time, sometimes just for sentimental reasons. Like, one of my friends, he went to Honduras, so his was a little different, but like I didn't care to keep any of my religious books or anything to do with it, because I'm like, I'm done with this. And I don't think I even noticed my resentment. I just noticed looking back that I was like, I went from being someone that got like laughed at a lot. And when I was young, I saw it as laughed at a lot. Like I thought I was getting laughed at, but I was like, oh, turns out I was just entertaining. But tried to stay away from that. Didn't want anyone to think of me as a joke at all. Think it'd be totally serious. I have my shit together.
This is blue and purple, once again, protecting the yellow.
And yeah, and then witty, sharp, whatever, just mean. You don't make any friends. That's just no way that is sustainable. Mm-hmm. It's not a way that you can be for a long time. And I think the only reason I was able to get by in it was it being my early 20s and just living with friends, and we were just hanging and drinking. So it didn't really matter that much. If you say something cutting and mean to like your friend, like your dude friends, it's whatever. And I didn't have relationships, just hookups,
I'm looking at your enraged category, right? And your red is your lowest color. So I've
seen a lot of evidence of anger.
Well, then this anger can come from the blue. Like you still have these two dominant strength colors here. They're just softened by this yellow that's your primary one, but the red is really the part that becomes a bully. So you're not even like if you go into that place, you're not a bully. You're not going out there to actually use your wit to aggressively cut people down. It's almost like, well, if you're going to come at me, that hurt my feelings.
I have zero tolerance for it, and I'm not ready to talk about it. So if you want to be mean, let's be mean. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and this is interesting because then this gets into like a it's not quite fairness, but it's more like saying it's rising to the intellectual challenge.
Yeah.
Does that make more sense?
I guess.
Because, well, what's interesting is that I'm looking at your green, and green is usually the thing that's like what helps you form camaraderie in a group, and we're all working towards a communal vision and something that's better, in the bigger scheme. And in your professional context,
So
it really
team player, so to
team
speak.
player really jumps out in your professional context. It's dormant in some other things, but then you have in your red also jumps out there. Your blue is still strong. So like when it comes into a professional context, still attention to detail, want to make sure that we get it right. But there is a greater sense of like fairness and then also take charge leadership.
Yeah. I mean, you got it. I've been raised a lot in leadership projects and to be a leader. And I know that I have strong opinionated ideas sometimes, and maybe it's the blue tendencies or whatever, that when I see that we're going to be working on something together as a group, I can see everyone doing their little parts and doing it and see it building something. Like I see a system of how it can work, and I'm already like jumping the hurdles in my head. Like, okay, what's the first problem we're going to run into and how are we going to overcome that? What's the next problem we're going to run into if we do it this way? Boom. And then like in Boy Scouts a lot is where I noticed that, we'd be building like we had these things where we were always lashing together towers. It was really important. We were taught in Boy Scouts, you got to know how to lash together towers for some reason. I'm still waiting for that day. I'll build it good when I do it, but
yeah, one day my Pinewood Derby will come in handy.
Exactly. But I would just see other groups trying something, like even my group trying something while I'm just still sitting back there just looking at it. Just not, I'm like, I'm like, hey, you should move that over there. I'm like, I don't know. It all feels like a waste of effort because already the way we're building it, I already assessed it through and I'm like, that's not going to work. We're going to need to do something different than that because there's no way we're going to be able to tip that up or, and so I learned really quick in leadership how much, like, if you're going to be someone who has these strong ideas, you can't be the guy that has ideas and no way to accomplish it. I would always hate that in playing in bands and stuff. You show someone something and then they're like, I'm not a big fan of that in the song. Like, okay, so what should we do in there instead for the chorus? Like, I have no idea. I just don't like that. Like, no, man, you can't be talking shit and then not have ideas for it to be good. So I think that naturally drove me to say, okay, if I'm going to be a guy who's outward about my opinion and what I think of this, then I better have a way to accomplish it in a way that it makes everyone happy. Otherwise, I'm just the guy talking shit. Which now I do for fun. It's just be the guy that talks shit.
Well, regardless, you're going to be talking shit. That's your strong blue tendencies. But then it's interesting that you're like, look, if you don't have a better idea, then don't get in the way of the forward momentum. That is some red. And that's what's coming in your color blend here in professional context. When we combine the blue, the green, and the red, we get the innovative triad, which is somebody who goes into a organization and is like, we're going to problem solve and try to do it this way, and please nobody get in my way as we optimize this thing for the better of the collective. Now in its extreme, that can become the disruptive triad, where it's like, look, if you don't do this thing right exactly as I say, then there's going to be and it needs to be fair according to me, then I'm going to be a problem for you. But once again, those aren't the colors that show up in your enraged. Actually, your red and your green are your lowest colors. Like, once again, what's interesting, what you said earlier about, we're really careful and caution, then we're losing that charisma. You don't have any tendencies to be a manipulative person. It's not inborn in you.
I've been accused of it a lot. I get accused of being manipulative a lot. I think and in some ways, like I said, it always comes back on me. Like if someone says I'm being manipulative, I'm like, oh man, am I being manipulative and I don't even know it?
Well, you have some interesting makings of the evil genius, but your heart is more focused on paying attention to other people than it is on self-assertion.
I think if it's someone though that I was trying to quote unquote manipulate. I think the times that I've been accused of that more, it was more that I was trying to get on their level and convince them, and I really wanted to understand. I really wanted them to understand my point, and I really wanted to get to a point that we were on the same level. And I think sometimes people can see just being convinced as being manipulated. Sometimes.
Yeah, well, I mean, yellow tendencies really want to be on the same level.
Yeah.
And then it's also purple tendencies really want to be on the same level because we can't move forward in the greater scheme of like career, business, professional until we get this solved. And then yellow is like, well, hey, my heart's not going to feel good until we get this resolved and we can move forward. Really fascinating. I'm seeing here in the professional context.
I feel like I'm getting my palm read when you're looking through this. This is like the 22nd century palm reading where it's like, oh, I'm seeing something here. What was there something in your childhood? Was that I'm seeing an uncle in a shed.
I could go full Miss Cleo. It's interesting because when you use the technology, it's like I can just see the way the colors combine, and it literally is. It's like the Matrix, And then I would say, if anything, it would be more along the lines of like mentalism at this point. But I understand exactly how you feel having your colors read. The goal is always, with this stuff, is to figure out.
Does it know how the Knicks are doing next year?
It doesn't. No, unfortunately,
okay, cool.
There's nothing that can help me, predict my future in order to.
It's okay. Technology. Once the AI and once you get like, what is that? Some quantum computing going.
Yeah, we get the predictive AI in here, and then it'll be like the precog crime in Minority Report.
He was too red. We knew he was going to commit it.
That's sort of one of the things that I worry about at a certain point where I go, oh my gosh, does that mean that, if everybody knows who's got the extreme red tendencies? That's why I think there has to be a limit on the sort of purpleness of how we approach stuff like this. Even in dealing with the technology, when you're dealing with emotional stuff, trying to appify that and turn it into like a way that we can have this conversation is inherently purple. But the greater light color that's going on behind the scenes is like the green. How do we develop that understanding and create the tools?
Well, from when we've talked about this before, every single one of them has a duality to it. Mm-hmm. Just like the same thing that makes you red and you could potentially be a bully, or that's what we want in our Navy SEALs. Bingo. You know what I mean? That's the same thing that means you're going to get up in the night and protect your house from an invader. You're going to, everything that makes you, there's always a good and a bad to all of it. The same people who are maybe frolicky and carefree, that also is going to come at a lack of attention where maybe they're disappointing people and letting people down, and they're doing things obliviously that are hurting other people because they don't realize how their behavior and their actions are affecting others. So there's two sides to the coin, even with the assessment.
And what's really become cool to figure out recently is like there's even a duality with the blends. Now that we've taken this sort of from primary colors and expanded into the personality color matrix, like if I look at your blend in the extreme as being predominantly yellow, blue, and purple, that's the suspicious triad. Now, how do we shift out of suspicious triad is by embodying the center of the colors that you aren't using, those three, which in that case would be the charismatic triad. It means being less in your head.
Let's talk about that.
And more out there in the world. Well, the counterpart is essentially the charisma. It's like the red.
That's what I mean, like the triad that I'm missing or whatever.
Right. So this is a strong red personality tendencies, which is forward, go-getting, don't let anything get in my way. One of the interesting things about the
I don't like doing that.
Strong red personality tendencies don't even understand they don't actually have the capacity to be inauthentic because they just always speak their minds. And in some ways, it's like the opposite of the like yellow sensitivity. The red is just forward and direct. And so in many ways, when we look at like the colors of our fearless leader, President Trump, there's a lot of red energy. Now you turn that into an extreme context, then that becomes the bully that bulldozes people. And then we also look at like orange, which orange is in its center really like it's the Robin
Which
Williams.
is funny though that we use that red for the
right
Trump
after.
because the blue does not apply to the Democratic Party at all.
Oh no, you can't really apply the political spectrum onto the colors. Although you can look at the strength.
It worked out fun for that. I just wanted to
Just
not
that little
confuse
bit.
any of you. They were like, hey, we're not saying though that blue is
Right,
look
right.
for organized and detailed in the Democratic Party.
You kind of can look at it being like strength associates a little bit more with conservative traditionalism, and warmth associates a little bit more with like progressive liberalism. And the strength side are the cool colors, or red, purple, blue, and then the warmth side is orange, yellow, and green. And so you can kind of look at it like that. People draw their values from two different systems, whether they think with their heads or they feel with their hearts. You're a person who tends to think with your head. I'm a person who tends to feel with my heart a little bit. And then as a result, that could lead us to basically I could call you heartless and you could call me brain dead. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of what goes on in our political spectrum right now between those two sides. So it's like, well, figuring out actually what's that bridge and that meeting in the middle, which is the trunk, which is why we need average white guys like you to make America strong. But when we get into the charisma thing,
I am the great that they.
Yeah,
am I the Hitler boy of America?
no,
for
we have to
America?
restrain ourselves.
We want the brown hair, blue eyes. Brown hair and blue eyes. John White's, tons of them. We're gonna line them up along the border.
Actually, I know a great
You'll
way.
get it done. I know a great guy.
I know a great way to pivot all of this. When we go into the charisma thing, right? Kanye West.
Yes.
And it's right in line with all of your rhetoric recently, right? When Kanye West goes into his extreme, out of his charisma, which is built out of his, like he's got a lot of different colors in different contexts. But when let's say he was running for president.
Yeah.
Okay. Very strong red, very strong orange. So he's very confident. He's out there. He's opinionated. And then green. I believe about these things, and I was almost aborted, and that's what's going on.
Jews are building tunnels.
Then you take that and you put it into the extreme, and then you get something that is like the master manipulator. And then when we look at like red, orange, and green personality tendencies that combined in that extreme context, we're looking at like a Jussie Smollett. In some capacity, we can see it as Kanye West when he's on Twitter and he's saying, I like Nazis, which just still boggles my mind. You used to be able to casually like Kanye West, for like
used to be able to casual like Nazis too, and they've ruined a lot of things in this country.
Oh God, John, this podcast is going to get canceled before it even begins.
That's why it's good you had a comedian.
I know.
I should preface that I'm a comedian.
Oh, I know.
It's all jokes.
We've already received 5 emails and complaints, and the episode hasn't even gone out yet.
Oh, those are going to end up on my desk.
That's true, actually.
Damn it!
You're causing yourself more
I'm the
work.
guy that. Damn. I didn't think of that, and my purple tendency should have seen that coming.
Think about the like. Would you have ever done anything nearly in the realm of what Jussie Smollett did?
Yeah, I need to be refreshed.
Jussie Smollett was the guy who faked the hate crime against himself in Chicago when he was on his way to Subway, and then he paid the 2 actors to then jump him.
Huh. No, I didn't hear about this.
You didn't hear about this?
I'm an out of the loop guy.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I wish we had the screen.
I know. Well, one day you'll be able to pull it up.
If this is
for now, I'll just how about this?
Get to the.
I'll find a different one. You know about Amber Heard and Johnny Depp?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, great. Well,
I'm an American. I don't know the real things that happened, but tell me about Johnny Depp. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, basically, the long and short of the Jussie Smollett thing was that he faked a hate crime against himself in order to leverage the victimhood currency that it would be in order to catapult his celebrity. Mm-hmm. So that's a strong indication of extreme red desire. I'm going to do this thing now, and I'm going to hire these actors, and I'm not necessarily thinking everything through. I'm just going to get it done now on my way to Subway at 3 o'clock.
Murder your wife mentality.
Well, yeah, sometimes in the extreme, it's when we just do things. And then the orange, which is manipulative, I'm kind of being devious and deceptive. And then the green is I'm using my group identity to be like, he staged it like there were these people that were MAGA Republicans that were using all of these racist epithets and using racist remarks, and then
we're making up words today.
We
I
are.
like this.
I'm really into making up words.
I like
right now.
What was it? Mischief?
Deceivious?
Deceivious. Mischievously deceiving someone.
Yeah.
Deceivious.
I'm glad that you brought back deceivious.
I was like, I have to because I'm going to miss everything he's saying.
This is a great example of blue personality tendencies is.
Which again, I thought was just autistic when you make up words.
Well, yeah, when you make up words, and then also when you catch people on, hey, actually, that's the blue purple coming in. But yeah, in the same aspect where like Amber Heard may have inflated what happened.
Yeah.
In the context, in order to use the Me Too movement, that's a big green thing. Use that and tap into that with extreme green and extreme orange, where I'm also coming in with that red, where I'm kind of twisting the truth in order to do a certain thing. That's what I'm talking about in terms of like a master manipulator. And in some ways, the red coloring, if it's really strong with the orange and the green, can be like a cult leader. So even when we look at like the way that people see Donald Trump, if you look at him from a centered point of view, then you see the charisma. Then if you look at him from the extreme point of view, you see the master manipulator, cult leader. And that applies like across the board. There's so many different archetypes that embody that, but right now that one's really pervasive. But what I'm saying is that those colors are really the stuff that doesn't show up in you. The orange shows up in the ideal self, but usually,
when you put it with the examples you've shown, it makes me glad they're not showing up.
Well,
but because like I guess
what's the good of like red, green, and orange?
Because I think I'm already like so far I'm on the same page of you, because I'm like, well, yeah, I avoid all the things you're talking about because I have the fear of falling into any of the bad things. You know what I mean? I don't want any of I can't deal with any of the life or the social situation that comes from being a person who is super out there, like embarrassing themselves on the internet with no care about it, you know, drawing attention to yourself no matter what the cost. Like I've seen so many bad things happen to people from that mentality that I try to avoid it all together. Although I do see ways that I get held back in that, like I don't perform as much as I could, you know, I don't get out as much. I end up not hanging out with people a lot because I don't like going out and being in those situations. And it's not about the people. It's not that I don't like them. It's just not as comfortable for me as being like on my own at home.
Yeah. And look, the whole idea is not necessarily like seeing what colors you don't have and then going like, oh, that's what I'm missing. It's not necessarily even working like that. It's like more about understanding how you see the world. So you obviously can tap into that orange, and with your blue and your purple, you can become a really prestigious, awesome act that obviously continues to help catapult you and move you through life. Like it's the reason why you're on this podcast, right? You developed a certain amount of like practice and method to your act, and then it's carried you forward. Now that's the difference, is really going from like, now both of them are social, the yellow versus the orange. It's like, am I one-on-one with one person, or am I in front of an audience of people? And then moving in that direction. Like it's good to know the red and the green though, because in your professional context, those bump up. So you're really good at bringing people together in a team, and then also leading them forward with direction in that context. So even earlier when you were like, well, when somebody's like one way at home and then they're a different way at work, that kind of makes me skeptical. It's like, you kind of got that going on a little bit, because we wear different hats in different arenas, and that leads to us being successful in those ways. The best thing is just really figuring out.
Yeah, I guess that is a little hypocritical.
The best thing is just figuring out like, okay, well, in the extreme, I tend to do this. And so how can I kind of maybe soften those edges? With one of the main things is with the yellow is that you could frame yourself as a victim, but I'm not necessarily seeing so much of that. I think that it's like maybe almost being too in your head and not taking the next step because you're thinking about the next step. And, you know, when we talk about purple, it's like that planning and preparation is really what defines them. Sometimes when we think about superheroes, right? The superhero, we define them in terms of like their brute force or strength, and that's like red all day. But then there's certain superheroes, like I always throw back to Black Panther. It's the suit, and it's the preparation, and it's the planning that's gone in that allows him to show up and be an actual competing force versus just suddenly hulking out and, you know, having all of that. So that's really the advantage to that preparation, is that it really leads to high quality and results.
But I think it also does lead you at times to think you gotta eat the whole elephant at once instead of bite per bite, because you're not thinking about the next step you got to take. You're thinking about 18 moves, and you're like, and it becomes like a big thing.
Mm-hmm. It's like one day I'll do that versus day one.
Yeah.
Now, the one day is great because in the purple you can make the list of all the things that you're going to do one day, but really it actually takes the red to be like, no, day one.
Right. What is a little fun that you can plan for the future? It's a little easier because you can only do so much in one day about it. So it's easy to stack up the future.
And it's interesting that you say that because when we look at like your purple and orange that come together in that ideal context, purple and orange love maximization. Purple loves maximization of time, and orange loves maximization of fun and experience, which is why they can also kind of interestingly burn out because once again, purple is going like so hard at work that then they got nothing left in their personal life and all their relationships are falling apart. It's like you missed Timmy's baseball game because you were working at the conference, versus the orange that's like, oh my gosh, we've got to have the most fun. And then you're on a bender and all of your responsibilities, all your purple stuff is sort of fallen by the wayside. But when you can harness both of those and then you have the blue, that's because the blue is really the brilliance, maximization of brilliance. And that's honestly what I get when I see you on stage and perform or when I listen to your music.
Thanks for the roses, man.
I want to speak some appreciation into your yellow heart.
Yeah, my wounded yellow heart. My wounded yellow heart.
Oh God, I love it. That's the orange coming in, man. So is there anything that you want to plug or that you want to highlight?
Mostly just John White comedy. Yeah. Check me out. Check me out on Instagram at John White Comedy, everywhere on social media at John White Comedy. Don't know how I scored the name, but I did. I got music up. I got a new single, Calling Out of Work, that dropped in January. Check that out on YouTube, Spotify.
It's got
anywhere
a great
you stream music.
Punk rock early aughts feel to it.
It was really fun. Yeah, I got to work with a really good producer of a. He plays in another band as well, so it was awesome. My first fully produced song. I'm super proud of it. And then there'll be dates coming. It's going to be a slow year for dates this year, but 2026 there's going to be a lot of dates.
Fantastic, great. And you can always catch John behind the scenes here at the Personality Color Matrix,
which I'm also looking forward to. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, I just think that it would be like, okay, if I could watch the very first episode of the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was interviewing Jamie, I'd be like, oh, that's kind of cool. But anyway, well, I no expectations. It's always a pleasure to work with you, though, and I really think that our colors complement each other. It's like you need the blue.
We got a good blend, brah.
Yeah, we got a good blend, brah. And it's a good vibes all around. So John White, pretty fly for a white guy, I'll say. And if you have enjoyed this episode of the Color Matrix podcast, then please go ahead and subscribe, like the channel, and then also click on the link below. It's going to link to opportunities to purchase our book, which is coming out May 23rd, the Personality Color Matrix, and also links to discover your colors and take the test online. We've enjoyed you being here so much, John, and thank you for gracing us with your presence. We hope that you can return and we can continue to unpeel the onion. Like I said, you are welcome to cancel your BetterHelp membership because you're always welcome here in this chair.
Thanks, man. It was a pleasure to be here.